There really is only two things in life. There's the time you get, and there's the choices that you make with that time. That is what is going to dictate your results. And we're not just talking about financial results. We're not just talking about how the world quantifies success. We're talking about whatever it is that you want, the person you want to be in 10 years, 30 years, 50 years.
Welcome to the Super Clinic Project Podcast, where we take regular clinic owners and turn them into cash-based multimillionaire entrepreneurs. Warning, if you're a doctor who listens to this podcast regularly, you will make millions of dollars. Do not listen to this podcast unless you want to be a successful clinic owner who helps thousands of patients achieve their health goals and adds more money than you can imagine to your bank account. You've been warned.
Welcome to episode 107 of the Super Clinic Project Podcast, where we give you the exact tactics, strategies, and mindsets that you need to fulfill your destiny by helping thousands of people in your community and dominating your market and your life. I'm one of your hosts, Rory Morgan. I'm here along with fellow hosts Jennifer Gligoric and Tracy Sundkvist. And by the end of today's episode, you will know how to be 10 times more productive with the exact same amount of time.
Woohoo!
Yeah, really what this comes down to is leverage, because we all have the same amount of time, and those who help more people have more impact, get better results, have more financial freedom. What they have done is they've taken the same amount of time as everyone else, and they have used it more effectively. So let's jump into it. Let's start with, I guess, the philosophy of what's going on here. Right? I think we all know this intuitively. We can't get time back, right? We can make more money. If we lose a friend, we can make new friends. But if we lose time, right, we cannot get time back. It is unforgiving. It never ceases ticking, right? It is the most precious gift that we're given in life. Every person is given the same allotment, right? But if you don't use that gift of time that you've been given, it becomes the most unforgiving fire, and it consumes all your other gifts, right? It consumes the promises that you have in your life. It consumes any right that you have claim of, right? If you don't use that first gift of time correctly. So I think the big idea here is that, generally speaking, in a lot of ways, life really isn't fair. People have different natural talents, right? Some of those talents that people have might be more valuable to the marketplace compared to talents that other people have. Right? Like, I'm pretty jealous of LeBron James because I loved basketball and I worked really, really, really hard at basketball. But fundamentally, he had so much more talent than me. There was really no way for me to close that gap. And that's not fair, right? But it's life, right? Like life isn't fair.
Everybody has this ability to think about things in a mindful way. When people talk about mindfulness, this is exactly what they're talking about. The idea that you're going to pause and think about what you're doing. Don't go off and just get into autopilot mode as much as we do. And we do that a lot in today's society. And we use a lot of tools to go into autopilot mode. So when we're talking about time management, we're talking about mindfulness, being mindful of your time, and think about it like, I want my time to be used in the highest, best use of my time and my talent. Why am I here? If I'm doing this, what is the reason? I had a coach, I'm a coach and I have a coach, and one of the things I didn't like is particularly this cleaning. And I don't mind doing dishes, but at the time I was feeling so resentful. I didn't have a dishwasher. I had to renovate and do, anyway, long story short, but I was having to do dishes, always manual. And I did that for all through when my kids were growing up. Right. And at the time she said, but that's a great time to be mindful. And I'm thinking, shut up. And she said, no, think about it. I just want you to spend a little bit extra. I know money, is always tight, for single mom, blah, 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 blah. But I want you to go out and buy the fancy soap, right? Which even if you go to Dollar General now, you can get kind of fancy soap, right? That smells really good. And I want you to create that experience just when you're doing it. And I thought, that is the dumbest thing I ever heard of, right? But I did it. I tried it. And I thought, I just thought, well, this is nice. This smells really good. I really like the way it feels now that it's clean. I'm going to put it up. I'm going to try to enjoy this odious task I really didn't like, right? That I was feeling so resentful for because I really wanted a dishwasher. It kind of changed things. And I got through it, and I actually kind of enjoyed having this time rather than checking it out in resentment. So there are things that you can do that even when you're having to do stuff that you do not like, whether it's emails or taking out the trash or whatever it is, we do a lot of things throughout our day. Mindfulness is important with that. I just wanted to put that in.
100%. I love the way you said that, right? Because I think really what you're getting at, right, is concept I believe we've mentioned on previous episodes. Most people don't lead their life. They accept their life.
Yes.
They aren't mindfully bringing, hey, what am I going to do with my time today? It's just subconscious programming. They just kind of accept maybe the way they were raised, or maybe, yeah, this is how my parents did things, or maybe this is just what I saw from other people. And you kind of just get into a routine.
Yeah, making chores for yourself, this to-do list, but you do not tie the to-do list to goals and aspirations and hopes to achieve your greatest goals and desires.
That's right. Yep, absolutely right. And so bringing it into the conscious awareness of like, I'm going to do the things that are going to get me where I want to be, which is like, it's important to understand that the one thing about life that is actually totally, completely, 100% fair is that every single human being who's ever been born has the exact same 24 hours in every day. Elon Musk has the same exact 24 hours that I have. He has the same exact 24 hours that you have. He just gets a hell of a lot more done with his 24 than I get done, right? He's mastered this principle of leverage. And so, if that's true, right, what you need to kind of understand is that there really is only two things in life. There's the time you get, and there's the choices that you make with that time. That is what is going to dictate your results. And we're not just talking about financial results. We're not just talking about how the world quantifies success. We're talking about whatever it is that you want, the person you want to be in 10 years, 30 years, 50 years. Are you doing the things you want to do with your time? Are you spending it with the people you want to spend it with? Are you behaving, or do you have the character traits that you want to have, right? Like, maybe a good way for people to picture this is, do you become the wise old sage, right, that maybe you would see in a Disney movie, right? Do you move up the ladder and become Rafiki from The Lion King, where you have lived the experiences, where you have gained and garnered the wisdom? Some of that wisdom might be financial success, right? It might be becoming a real estate investor and being able to live off your passive income. Do you actually move through life and become that wise old sage where you had the experiences that you wanted to have and you learn the lessons you wanted to have so you can pass that on to the next generation? Or do you become the bitter old man or woman who just never really lived the life they wanted to live, who had dreams? They had a song inside of them, but that song never got sung, right?
Rory, I really want to jump in here, because as soon as you were speaking about that bitter old woman first, I think you said, but anyway, we're not going to go there.
I said man first. I said bitter old man or woman.
I think what it pulls to mind for me, and it's so powerful, is that, I mean, we've all been in coaching for 2 decades, and something that is true and is consistently true for a great deal of our clients would be when they join, they are fully committed to the change that they want to make. So they know, they get clear on what they want, and then we start working toward closing the gap between where they are right now and where they want to be. And so often the kind of BS that we hear is, I didn't have time. I wanted to do that, but I didn't have time. And I'm thinking, how happy are you putting yourself in a victim mode? Because that is exactly what you're doing. You're saying to yourself, I cannot achieve what I want to achieve because for some reason, the world has conspired to not put me in control of what I do and what I don't do. Right. So it becomes not, the question then becomes not, what is it that you need to do to be able to achieve your results? It's more along the lines of, what do you need to do so that you can actually take responsibility for how you use your time? Because until you can do that, the rest is just a total waste of time.
And that's a tough one because we hear every day, time got away from me. There's just not enough hours in the day. I mean, all those old cliches that everybody says, but at the end, you do pick it. You do choose it. What we're doing, and it's a tough pill to swallow. But at the same time, once you really realize that, it can be the most empowering thing on the face of the planet.
Yes.
But better a pill to swallow than a suppository, right?
Yes.
Yes. Good imagery there. So yeah, I think what we got to do is we just, if you're listening right now, you have to make the commitment in your mind for I am responsible for my choices. My choices ultimately, whether this is how you behave in your marriage or how you parent or how you show up, just even showing up to a meeting unprepared is a choice that you made for what you are going to do with your time. You chose to not be prepared, and you have to just take responsibility for that. And so ultimately you have to look at where you are today, what you have, the character traits that you have, the amount of money that you have, the amount of people that you help, the type of results you're getting. Those are a direct result of your last 10 years worth of choices, right? You have what you have today because of the choices you made in the past. So you had 24 hours every single day and you chose to spend them a certain way that led you to where you are now. And so if you would like to be somewhere different in the next 10 years, then what you are going to have is you are going to have 10 years worth of 24 hours. 365 days a year, you're going to get 24 hours. And what you do with each hour and with each 10-minute block and with each minute is going to dictate what you have in 10 years from now, right? So you've got to get clear on that concept that ultimately you are responsible for your life. So let's jump into how do we do it, right? So the first thing I would say is that you actually have to kind of set a rule for yourself, right? And so functionally, right, if anyone out there is religious, you might get offended when I say this, but functionally speaking, your planner, your calendar is functionally equivalent to God, right? So you lay out and you decide. And once you put it on your calendar, that now becomes the law, right? And you say, I'm going to get this done. I'm going to get this done in this time. This is how I'm going to use my time. And you cannot sin against your calendar by disobeying your calendar.
And if you are religious, which of course I am, I'm Orthodox Christian, but I would literally pray and say, okay, God, lead me to do this calendar so that I am living the highest, best use of my time and talent for you, and that I have enough time for even doing nothing, right? There's that Nixon, that Dutch doing nothing concept, which is all over the news right now because, Gen Z and millennials are really taking it, but it's intentionally setting time aside to do nothing and just be. But there is a goal for the just being. I'm going to take in nature. I'm going to allow inspiration to come to me. So we're not talking about driving yourself into the ground. We're saying set a calendar to where you can just be. Set a calendar to honor God, or if you're not, to do the things that are important to you, to spend time with family and actually intentionally live your life. So I just wanted to put that one in there.
Yeah. I also want to jump in. So usually there's two reasons why we don't do something. The first is because we don't want to. And the second is because we don't know how. So when we speak about using planner, think about what planner you're going to use, right? If you use your EHR Google type Monday to Friday calendar, are you going to be able to put in all of the activities that are going to relate to focusing on your strategy, building out your value proposition, reach out to old patients? Are you going to be able to put all of those activities in there? Or do you need to have something that's specific to you? So if you're old school, are you going to have that old book where you write things in and keep track that way? Or is it going to be an online thing? Because the first thing is there needs to be consistency. You need to know that there's one place that you look at, and that is the place that is going to give you how you're going to spend your time and your energy.
Absolutely. Yep. And we're going to get into that more. So first rule is your calendar is God, right? You make that the law. Second rule is everything goes on your planner. So if you have decided, if you're a clinic owner and you're going to use your electronic health records as your calendar that you're going to operate your life off of, then you have to literally put, if you have a family event, that goes in the EHR, right? Or if you're going to use the iCal, and you sync your EHR with your iCal, then your iCal is, the family events are there, right? You have to make sure you have it in one place, because visually, all of a sudden, you get this picture of, wait, this is my greatest resource. This is how much I have of my greatest resource. This is how much time I'm spending on things that I actually don't like doing or aren't actually productive, or I want to give more time to my family, and I'm only leaving, 2 hours a week for my family, right? It forces you to look at it, and it forces you to come to grips with, like, what I spend my time on is what is important to me, right?
Yeah, we get a lot of clients that come in. They said, what's the most important thing in your life? My kids. And when we actually go through their calendar, how much time did you actually spend with your kids? Okay, so they're not the most important thing in your life right now, because you're not spending the time to do that. And so then they'd have to say, okay, well, it is, because doing this is going to allow me later on to take off that time so I can be there, for other things. So there's a purpose to that, right? Yeah. We're not saying don't work, right? or don't do that. Just saying with intentionality. And when you do that, you have to honor yourself and set boundaries, because it's just a healthier way to live. It's healthier for kids, all your relationships, both your personal, your staff, patients. And in the end, highly disciplined people are more likely to be perceived by others as honoring their time. So if you think to yourself, they're going to think I'm selfish for that. No, the opposite is true. When you honor time like that, and then when they get their time, you honor that time. You're not on your phone. You're not answering other calls. You're not letting staff interrupt you. When you give them those focused time for that, because that's in your calendar, then you get a lot more respect that way. You're perceived as a more respectful and honoring person too. It just works out great in all ways.
Absolutely. That kind of just goes back to, hey, your calendar is God. If God has told you that you need to spend these 2 hours with your family, you're not going to be on your phone, right?
Yep.
And it doesn't help you're with them, but mentally you're somewhere else. Right. You have to fully be in it.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So the first thing you want to add to your calendar is what Jennifer said, what Tracy said, what I've hinted at, which is you have to prioritize the most important things for your entire year, which don't earn you money, right? So for most people, these are going to be things like family vacations, maybe regular family events, right? Like, oh, we always have a planned, family thing that we do on Saturdays. Maybe it's date nights with your spouse, and you have to add that into your calendar. The other thing that Jennifer had mentioned is this time to just be, right? I live in Colorado. I'm right next to the mountains. There's all these amazing outdoor spaces, and I love like camping, taking my kids camping, right? And there's no priorities for me when I go camping. It's like, this is 2 or 3 days to go get lost in the mountains. Just like it's not like there's this itinerary that I have to follow and that I have to send messages when I'm there. It's like I bring a notebook. And so I have thoughts that pop up, and I want to kind of like get those thoughts out, right? Because I'll have thoughts about business, I'll get clarity because I'm in the mountains. I'm just sitting around the campfire, or I'm just hiking with my kids. And I'll get some ideas like, oh man, I have more clarity right now. And I can kind of think about some of the problems that I've had wrapped around my head when I've been at work, but I've just been too in it to get the clarity that I need. Right. And so I might just write that thought down, or I might write those couple ideas down, and then I'm back to being with my kids and not doing anything, no priorities. Right. So point being, you've got to put that stuff first. Like, how much time and how much intentionality are you giving to those parts of being a human being that we don't tend to think about?
But then you have to get the stuff done.
Right. Yep. So the next thing is now you have to actually plan out your routine thinking time and GSD time. GSD stands for get shit done, right? So I don't know if we're going to need a parental advisory on this one, because we said the SH word, but almost no business owner actually plans this time out, right? So thinking time, where you can proactively structure time to say, okay, I've got to, there's some issues in my business, right? Maybe it's like, man, it's like the last 3 or 4 employees I've hired, it's like they're just not on the ball. It's like they don't get what we're trying to accomplish. They just want to show up and not get anything done. Like they just want to get their paycheck and leave, right? That would be a good time to dedicate a couple days worth of thinking time instead of just continuing to go to Indeed and just hire. Oh, there's a warm body. There's someone who's, relatively pretty and seems nice, and I'll hire her and she can be a nice face for the front desk. Well, what about like thinking to the root? Like it just seems like maybe if I just keep hiring people that don't care about what I'm trying to accomplish, maybe the problem is me and my leadership. How can I lead them better? How can I communicate the vision more clearly so they know what's expected of them, right? What are the things right? And you can spend a couple days of thinking time working through these issues and coming up with a game plan, right? Rather than just, remember, now we're leading our life instead of just accepting it. Oh, I just hire. Oh, it didn't work out. I guess I'll just put up with crappy employees, right? It's just one example. But basically what I would tell you is you want to plan this time where you are most focused. For the vast majority of people, this is going to be first thing in the morning. But there are many other people where it's like, okay, I get the kids in bed and like, whatever. My wife watches TV or my husband, he watches, the sports or whatever. And I can be alone for a couple hours and I'm really focused. My thoughts are working well. I feel in tune, right? I know that's my time to get a lot done, right? So there's night people, right? Some people, your schedule might work out that, it's like you kind of get through your morning and then you have like a long, 2.5 hour lunch and you go get a workout right when you get done with what you have to get done in the morning. You go get a quick workout and then you have a couple hours where you're just like in the zone. You've got endorphins flowing and you can just be super productive. Point is you have to figure out what that is for you and you have to plan it out. And I would say you need 2 hours a day. And the larger your business grows, the more of this time you're going to need.
Rory, I think for me, one of the greatest tools that I've shared with entrepreneurs to help them think through this in almost like putting baskets together on thinking and how they need to show up would be the E-Myth. I think his concept of being able to split your time and focus into those three categories, which is the CEO, the person driving the strategy, and then it's the manager, how are you interacting within the practice so that you can get systems effective, efficient, streamlined, working through that capacity? And then the third is the technician. And the technician would be more of a fulfillment, right? So literally your hands-on patience. And while you're planning your day, your week, however far in advance you want to plan, it's about understanding for your practice, how should your time be split up between those three activities, and make sure that you're giving the right activity the right ratio of time.
Yeah, exactly right. We highly recommend the E-Myth Revisited. If you haven't read that book, you need to buy it and you need to read it or get the audio book, just as good, however you like to get your books. So during this thinking time and the GSD time, you want to be using this time for things like building processes. You want to be writing scripts, right? Scripts for the phone, scripts for the sales process, right? And then you can have your team use that script for a week or two, and then you can analyze those calls and you can figure out, is this working? Where do I are they actually following the process, right? If they're not following the process, you would use your thinking time to figure out, how do I get them to follow the process? If they are following it and it's not working, then you can change the script, right? Copywriting, you want to improve your communication skills, right? Idea generation, right? You can come up with new promotions. There's so many things you can do in this time that is super useful. So again, you want to have 10 hours a week dedicated to this, because if you're going to have a business, this is a crucial thing that in that E-Myth idea, right? Like you have to spend time being the entrepreneur. The business needs the CEO/entrepreneur to be working on these things. That's an actual function inside the business. If no one's occupying that seat in the business, then there's no leadership. So the next thing, after you've blocked out your GSD and your thinking time, is obviously you have to block out your patient hours, right? When you're seeing patients, you're not going to be able to do other things. Now, a couple realizations you might have here. You might realize once you do that, holy crap, there's no other time to get anything else done. And what you should take that as a sign is, well, nobody's filling the CEO role in my business. I'm just a technician. I'm self-employed. I'm not running a business. I'm just self-employed. And I'm hoping there's people that will help me, but ultimately no one is providing the leadership and the vision for my business, right? So just in the interest of time, we won't go too in depth on that. But the next thing that you need to do is you then need to block off your selling time, right? So in a business, fulfillment is a function. Actually, in a business, like fulfillment is a function in the business. You have to deliver the service that you have promised them. But a completely separate function is selling, right? You have to sell people in order to fulfill. And so you might realize when you block off how much time do I have available to make sales, you might realize that you literally physically do not have enough time blocked out to reach your goals. So you might realize that if you filled every single slot that you have available and every single patient that ever came in for one of those slots said yes, and they paid you your price, you still would not reach your goals.
So
because
I just want to say, just wait. There is the punchline of you're like, oh yeah, see, I told you there's not enough hours of the day. No, there are. But I want you guys to wait for it. Because now they're like, crap, there is. You just have to stay with us. It's coming.
Okay. Next thing you need to block off is you have to block off production time for marketing. So if you don't understand your marketing message, you don't have your own marketing strategy, you don't understand how you get new patients, you don't understand why patients would come to you instead of another, right? Like this is a key skill set of a CEO, right? So you have to have time set aside for creating video content. You have to have time set aside for doing the copywriting on your emails, right? Because as the CEO, you need to be in control of the message of your business. You need to have time set aside for creating new ads every single week. You should really ideally have a good solid 4 hours a week set aside to actually actively working on your marketing. Okay. These are really big things that you need to have blocked off if you're going to be a CEO. Now, there's a couple of key realizations that I'm hoping you'll be having at this point. Number one, you don't have enough time for the activities that actually grow your business, right? You don't have any time budgeted to actually work on your business, right? So you don't have GSD time. You don't have thinking time set aside, right? And the businesses that continually grow, they have a CEO that focuses on thinking time, getting shit done, and selling and marketing. That's what grows a business, is solving problems, which is what you do during your GSD time and your thinking time, and making sales. Right. And so if a business doesn't have that, you're never going to have the actual control over the levers that grow your business. If you don't have the time that you need in order to do what you need to do to reach your goals, you have to make active choices to stop doing the things that aren't growing your business so that you can do the things that will grow your business. You can't have a great brand unless you are working on your brand. So that means you have to take the time to work on your brand, which means you have to stop doing other things to put in the work on your brand, right?
I'd like to jump in here real quick.
Go ahead.
And I would like to tell you, there is a tactic you can use when you're figuring out this time and you're blocking these hours. And I would like you to block out even a 30-minute block. Focus blocks of time. There's this great app called Tomato Timer, and I think it's 20 minutes. Actual laser focus where you're uninterrupted for 20 minutes can often get you a lot more productivity than just an hour if you're letting other things distract you or other thoughts distract you. So start moving yourself towards how can I maximize the 20 minutes? So that way you can put in exercise. Like I will do 20 minutes of this. I'm going to stand up and I'm going to do some jumpy jacks. I'm going to go, I have this bathroom breaks, or I have this. And laser focused time. If you're mindful like this and you have your schedule, you'll be amazed at how much time you'll reclaim from yourself because you're able in those focused times to really give it your all and complete what you need to do.
Yes, absolutely. So just to give one final thing here, as if you're looking at your calendar and you've actually participated in this, you've written this stuff all out, and you're kind of realizing like, I basically spend way too little time on thinking, planning, getting stuff done, working on the business, and I spend way too little time selling and marketing. All of my time is taken up by patient hours. What you need to think about is, okay, then I'm I need to charge more money so that I can hire people to do the work for me of fulfillment, right? Because you're probably not charging what you're actually worth because you aren't able to hire people, right? So that's fundamentally, you need to be like, okay, I need to charge more money, which will give me more margin in my business. With the extra margin, I can hire someone to do the fulfillment, and then I can move myself into the seat of the CEO that's actually working on the business, right? So I would say that's probably the most simple hack, if you will, that every clinician needs to realize is my business doesn't have a CEO because the time in the day that the CEO things are supposed to be getting done, nobody's actually doing that job, right? And if my business is going to have a CEO, then I am going to have to hire someone else to do the work. So I think we can wrap it up there, and we can say, go get shit done. Literally go get your calendar and put this stuff in there. And it will change your life. All right, guys? What you have in 10 years will be a direct result of what you do with your 24 hours a day, every single day from here on out. So you're accountable now. You're responsible. All right, let's wrap it up. And we will see you guys on the next episode. But before we go, we got to tell you, go to the superclinicproject.com, subscribe to the podcast, and sign up for our free trial to the mastermind that Dr. Zaino and I do, where we're going to teach you all of this. All these resources are in there. You can get one-on-one access to me and Dr. Zaino, where we will help you deal with this stuff. We'll get on calls with you, and we'll help you get to that next level. So superclinicproject.com, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Super Clinic Project podcast. If you like what you hear, subscribe and stay tuned for further episodes of the Super Clinic Project podcast.